Privateer Press would like you to believe that this is a void gate, but if you ask me, I think this is a better void gate. Disclaimer, this is probably not tournament legal. Welcome everyone, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield, and I've got another Blender tutorial for you. Now, of course, void gates are integral to the game Warcaster Neo-Mechanika, and this little guy here that comes with the game, well, came with the Kickstarter, you can buy them separately. It's a little too small considering you have giant Warjacks walking out of it, so I redesigned my own that's a lot bigger. So today we're going to walk through the Blender process of creating this thing right here, and this is not a very difficult Blender tutorial. You got to know how to manipulate objects and basic idea of what a modifier is. I'll walk through the details of how to use those when they're relevant, but you got to know what a modifier is. The one thing that is kind of tricky is when you get to the resin printing steps. The supports for this guy can be kind of finicky, and unfortunately that's unique to your slicer program and your printer and whatnot, so I won't be talking about that in this tutorial. But as I go through the Blender process, I also suggest some alternate things you can do if you want to reduce the difficulty of the support process by the modeling. Yeah, I'll explain that as things go on. So, therefore, don't worry if you're not comfortable with a lot of supports. There's things you can do to make this a little bit easier on you. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get started. To begin the process, I'm here in Photoshop because what I want to do is create a concept sketch of what I'm trying to make before I get to Blender. Therefore, when I actually get to the 3D modeling process, I'm not creating things from scratch. Instead, I'm just building off a template I've already created. In the lower right-hand corner of my workspace here, I've got kind of the official Warcaster art of the void gate. Now, I'm not trying to recreate this thing exactly. I'm trying to create something that's kind of inspired in the same theme of this design. So I got this here mainly as a reference image. And what I want to do is sketch out the various parts that make up 1/4 of the void gate. Now the reason I'm only making 1/4 of the void gate is because when we get to Blender, we can copy and paste things and save a lot of time. Here's the first thing you can do to reduce your 3D print support workload later on, and that's simply to have fewer pieces. If you got less pieces and they're larger, it's just going to be less supports to deal with, less areas you got to attach supports and things like that. My rough sketch of the chain is done. Now I've got two colors here. Red are going to be the parts that are repeated all around the edge, and the green are going to be kind of special interconnecting parts. Before we get to Blender, there's two more things that I want to do here. For each of the red segments, I want to identify the corners of each of the piece so I know how many vertices each one is made of. As I identify the number of vertices in each of these pieces, I want to write that number down just to make it clear. It always helps make the design as clear as possible when conveying it to somebody else, even if that somebody else is the future you from 10 minutes from now. And then also, if you look at the reference image, there's these weird, almost like rune-like shapes on the bottom of the various components. I want to sketch some of those out as well, and I'll use those to create that effect inside Blender. One great way you can make your life a lot easier when it comes to supports is don't go overboard in the details of these runes. Make them larger than what I did, and then make them a little bit less fancy and less jaggedy, and you'll be good to go. Otherwise, you got to pay really close attention to the layer by layer setup in your slicer to make sure you get all the tiny little pieces. Now it's time to jump over to Blender. I've got a blank scene here. I got rid of all the usual default crap, the cube, the light, the camera. And now I can bring in the image I just created as a reference image. The exact sizing doesn't matter just quite yet. We'll deal with that later on in the process. What I want to do is, from a top-down perspective, build each of these red segments. And the reason I got the numbers there for the number of vertices, to create them, all I'm going to do is do Shift-A, add a new mesh, choose a cylinder, and then down here in the lower left-hand corner, click on Add Cylinder. You can punch in the number of vertices to get the number you need, and then jump into edit mode, shape the piece out, and move on to the next one. Be sure to add each new shape as its own separate object, so be sure to jump out of edit mode and back into object mode before you add the next one. So now it's time to work on building these hieroglyphics here. It's a bit of a time-consuming process, but this is the, easiest way to do it. So I'm going to add a new plane, and obviously make sure you're in object mode so you're not accidentally editing one of those guys up there. And I'm going to bring it over here approximately in line with the first set of hieroglyphics. We'll jump into edit mode. And then what I'm going to do is delete those two vertices. And now I'm going to build out the perimeter of this shape by holding down Control and right click. And this is going to let me add a whole bunch of vertices. And I can kind of trace out the shape that I'm trying to create here. When you get close to the end, just kind of Control right click somewhere near the vertice. Then Shift left click on the final vertice and press M for merge and choose at last. And that'll merge them together. Now we're going to kind of repeat this process for all the different hieroglyphics in this group. To start one of the new hieroglyphs, left click so you deselect all the current vertices, and then Control right click and begin the process again. Now the problem we have right here, which you can't really tell from looking at things at the moment, if I edit out of edit mode, or if I exit out of edit mode and then choose solid, what you're going to notice is we've just got a bunch of outlines, which isn't what we want, because in order to do some fancy operations to make these things work, we need solid objects. So let's left click on our hieroglyphic set one more time and go back into edit mode. And then one at a time, you want to select all the vertices belonging to one of the hieroglyphs and press F as in face. And there you can see all of a sudden it turns solid. We can repeat this process for the rest of each one, or repeat this process for each of the remaining hieroglyphs. And this way we start by turning them solid. And make sure when you go ahead and press F, you don't have like an extra vertice somewhere else selected, or weird things might happen. Now, if I were to turn sideways, or look from the side view, you can see that here's our object, this little orange line, it's flat. Which is the next thing we have to solve by going back into edit mode. Let's jump to wireframe, press A to select everything, and then press E for extrude, and just drag it down like that. So now you can see we've got our hieroglyphs in a nice solid object. One more thing to make sure everything goes well with this set of hieroglyphs. Let's go back to edit mode, press A to select all, and do Shift N. This is recalculate normals. It's a magic blender math thing. Don't worry about the details. It's really important to 3D printing. And in a lot of cases, it's just general 3D modeling. All right, I'm going to repeat those steps for the remaining 5 hieroglyph sets, and then we'll move along. Now we get closer to some of the fun stuff in Blender. And what we need to do is take our hieroglyphs we just created here and then arrange them along our red pieces such they look kind of cool. So that means duplicating them multiple times, rotating them interesting ways, scaling them, whatever you need to do to kind of make them look cool as they're arranged in each of the pieces. My hieroglyphs are all aligned correctly within the various pieces, but I need to make sure they're aligned correctly in the vertical direction. So I'm going to hide my reference image here, and I want to jump over here to my side view. Okay, before I do that, let me move these guys out of the way so they're not cluttering things up. And what you can see here is all these weird, really long things. Those are the hieroglyphs. And then these pieces up here, these are the actual parts that are going to make up the void gate. What I want to do is make sure that my hieroglyphs are pretty close to halfway through the depth of the void gate thing. So this red line here, which is the x-axis, is basically halfway through our objects that are going to make up the void gate. Align your hieroglyphs so that the top of them is aligned with the x-axis, and the bottom, it sticks somewhere way down below. It doesn't matter exactly where. It just got to be below the bottom of the void gate piece. And because of some weird sizing things, there are a few that I have to adjust. And then what you want to do is go back to your original void gate piece. Let me just go over here, and I'm going to give it a void gate 1. And then click on your hieroglyph part. Let's give it a name that makes sense. H1, that's easier to find. Then go back to your void gate piece. We're going to add another modifier. This time we want to add what's called a Boolean operation. Keep difference selected. And then for object, we want to search for H1. So that looks about right, and what I'm looking at is you want to see the hieroglyph pattern here on the bottom. And as you move your screen around here, you can see that the lines going into the piece, like for example right here, they flicker between orange and black. That's a good thing. That's kind of what you want to see, is what you want to see to make sure this works correctly. So now we need to apply this modifier. Depending on what version of Blender you're using, there may be an apply button around here, or it may be hidden under this arrow. Then I can click on my hieroglyph, press H to hide it. Let's go back to solid mode, and there we go. Your hieroglyph is cut out of the piece. Alright, I'm going to repeat that process for all the remaining void gate parts, and we'll see you back in a moment. And by the way, while I'm doing this here, that whole Shift N thing I did earlier for recalculate normals, that helps this math go correctly. If you're seeing kind of strange things, go back to your both pieces, the void gate and the hieroglyphic piece, jump into edit mode, select all the vertices, Shift N. It will really solve a lot of problems for Boolean operations. Things went well. You got your various pieces here, the hieroglyphs in them. Of course, they're still sitting flat. So we got a two-step process to turn them into a quarter arc for the void gate. Let me jump back to the top. Let's join them all together. They all have the hieroglyphs. So I've moved it so that the starting point is aligned with one of the major vertical axes. It doesn't really matter which one, just one of them. Because what we're going to do now is bring out the most dangerous tool in Blender, and that's called the knife tool. Let me jump in quickly right here. This video was recorded shortly before the release of Blender 3.0. One of the changes in the new version of Blender is the keys for the knife tool have changed. Therefore, the instructions I give you here for the various key presses won't work in 3.0, so be sure to consult the manual for what the new buttons are in that version of Blender. Let me jump into edit mode. Press A to select everything, and then starting over here, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 vertical lines in. I'm going to press the letter K. Your cursor is going to turn to a knife. As you might think of with a knife tool, it's going to let you cut straight through the mesh. And the reason why this is the most dangerous tool is all sorts of weird stuff can happen if you're not careful. I'm going to hopefully do something that's relatively careful today. So let's click somewhere around here on this spot. You can see you've got a little red line going through, and where it crosses a edge leaves a green dot. Basically, we're going to cut that thing and leave a vertice. But what we want to do is press C, and that constrains it to the 8 major axes, and then the letter Z. Now the letter Z is going to cut all the way through the object. And what I'm going to do is cut straight through the object, and then left click when I get to the top of the object, go over 3 more squares, and then go back through the object. Now I'm going to keep repeating this process about 3 squares at a time until you've gone through your entire thing. And whatever you do, do not right click. If you right click, you'll lose everything you've done so far. And when you get to the end, just press enter. And what you're going to see now is you've got a bunch of vertical lines going through your pieces. What that's going to do is give Blender a way to wrap this thing around a curved surface. We're going to build the shape of the void gate using a deform curve modifier. To do that though, we got to have a curve itself. So I'm going to choose Shift A, and then to add a curve, choose a circle, and just scale it up so it's a fair bit bigger than an object. And the orientation of our object here matters for the curve follow thing we're going to do in just a moment. So what I want to do in this case is go up here to my rotation and choose X and type in -90. It's going to turn the object on its side, and that's very important so that this way all that iconography we built into the inside of the void gate will be on the inside. Also make sure that your void gate pieces as well as the curve itself are located in the center of the Blender world, which is 0, 0, 0. You can see this here as my piece is sitting right along all the axes. So with this object selected here, I'm going to go to our modifiers properties, choose add modifier, and under deform, choose curve. For the curve object, choose Bezier circle, and you can see down here, well, it's placed the object on the curve, and because we add that extra geometry, it's curving it pretty well, and the iconography and hieroglyphs, they're on the inside the void gate, just like they should be. What do we do from here? Well, I want to select both the object itself and then shift left click the curve and press R to rotate and stop once our object here is roughly in the middle of one of the 90-degree quadrants like you see here. Click back on our object and I can scale it up so it's almost 90 degrees around the circle. And then what we need to do is if I go ahead and jump back to our top view here, bring back in my reference image, I need to build out my two green objects and put them right here and here. Well, here we go. Now it's time to assemble the gate into a final piece. But to do this, let's select our curved object here. And I want to apply this modifier. And then I can go ahead and delete the actual curve. Let me get my reference image out of the way. You can see I've already positioned the side pieces approximately where they should be and the top and bottom pieces where they should be. I'm now going to duplicate this gate piece here and I'm going to mirror it across. Let's see, there we go. I'm going to mirror it so that it's in about where it should be, and then I will repeat that process like this. And that looks about correct there. And then I just got to rotate and scale in these pieces as to where I want them. And we're really close now. Of course, being a 3D print, this has to be one solid object. We can't 3D print all sorts of little bits floating around. But we can cheat a little bit in the fact that we can use clear resin, which allows us to print this clear and then we can paint it up however we want to make it look like those little bits floating around some sort of swirling energy. So let me go ahead and join this all into one object, and then I'm going to add a new cylinder. Let's go 256 vertices so that it is fairly circular. And for the radius, this is going to be half the diameter. Firebrand is about 60 to 65 millimeters tall, depending on what weapon configuration it is and which model and whatnot. So for my radius, I'm going to choose 32. In this case, it's M for meters, but 3D printing world will be millimeters. For the depth, let me choose, I'm going to start with 3. I want to make it as thin as possible, but it's still got to be able to touch all the pieces of the void gate. Alright, so we've got the cylinder in here, and our void gate is much larger at the moment, so I'm going to scale that down. Oops, a doodle. Let me make my life easier by going to Object, Set Orange, Set Or Mesh, and then scale it down such that this cylinder, as you can see there, we just added, is in the middle of the, a little bit past the middle of the void gate. So it's kind of touching each of the pieces past kind of the detail level. Whoop. Got some adjustment to do because, well, we don't have, our void gate's probably not an exact circle. So feel free to take this middle object and extend it to match your void gate. So let's scale it down to the minimum amount so that it contacts all the pieces. That piece is going to drive me nutty. Okay. So right now our void gate is 8 millimeters thick. That's like 3/8 of an inch. That's no good. Let's make it thicker, just so it doesn't break. And then I can start playing around with this inside piece accordingly. Getting close to having this thing done. What I want to do is add some sort of detail to the energy. There's a lot of complex ways to do this, but the simplest is kind of go with more of like a bubbling type effect, like I did a while back when I was building the energy well. I'm going to do the same kind of thing right here, and for that, all you need to do is add some cylinders. So let's add add some UV spheres, scale it up a bit, and then we're going to make sure it's sticking through. We can make it mostly on one side. So like I think I said, we'll have like one side will be kind of the cool detailed side. Like something like that. Let's drag it over here, and then what I can do is do shift duplicate, make another one, like just scale it down, put it next to it. And you're just adding these little pockets of kind of like bubbles that are forming on the surface of this little energy field. So one last thing you can do to make the support process easier is don't put any detail on the back of the energy fields. Have all your fancy little things going on in the front, and then you can angle the gate such that the back side is what's facing the print bed, and therefore supporting that will be a lot easier because it's perfectly flat. And that's looking pretty good for our little void gate here. So let me join it all together in one object, and then I can send it off to my resin printer to be printed in clear resin, and we can paint it up from there. And to get your model into the slicer, go to File, Export, and choose STL. On the dialog box that opens up, be sure to choose the option for Include Selection Only. It's probably on the right side of the dialog. Therefore, your void gate that's selected will be the only thing that's exported, not all of the other stuff you use to assist in the creation of the void gate. Once the miniature is printed and you've removed the supports and done all that curing fun stuff, it's time to paint things up. Now, there are two key points when it comes to painting this miniature. The first is don't use a spray primer, and the reason for that is a second important tip. Use thin down paints such as washes, inks, or Citadel's contrast paints on the center energy field, therefore leaving that part of the miniature having a nice translucent look. Then, of course, once the miniature is painted, go ahead and base it in a way that matches the rest of your army. And there we go. That is about it for this painting process. In fact, I'm recording this intro and outro so close to after finishing it, the paint is not yet dry. That's spot on my fingers from the miniature. That's what I do sometimes. Anyway, thank you guys all for watching. If you want to see more Blender tutorials, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And I've got some more for Warcaster. I made a couple custom Warjack equipment. And of course, I painted up my miniatures. About 2 different tutorials I think I've done on those. So when you see the guys in the photos next to this, I'll put links to all those videos down in the show notes. So once again, I'm Jason, and have a great week to, I don't know, at some point I'll have another video coming out soon.